Hello and welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, I want to get into a story here today that comes to us from New York. And this is about the Central Park Five, which is a group of five young men who were black and brown, have filed a defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump over comments that he made during the presidential debate in September. Now, if you recall, these five young men were, back in, I believe it was 1989, were falsely accused of committing a rape on a young woman in Central Park in New York. Now, these men denied the charges, denied that they were guilty of the charges, and they did this in spite of the fact that they were convicted by a court and they served several years in prison. However, after about a decade, the alleged victim, well, let me just put it this way. These five men were exonerated by DNA after another man who was not charged came forward and admitted that he was the one that committed the crime. Now, all the while, they're filing a lawsuit here now alleging defamation by the president or former president. Now, the members of the Central Park Five filed a defamation suit against former President Donald Trump on Monday, accusing him of spreading false, misleading, and defamatory comments about their 1989 case during the September the 10th ABC News presidential debate, according to the lawsuit. Now, the attorneys that are representing these five men, Yusef Salam, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Antoine Brown, and Corey Wise, filed their civil suit against Trump in federal court in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, seeking monetary damages over his statements, which they say have caused them severe emotional distress and reputational damage. Now, here's the deal. Donald Trump, who was just an ordinary citizen at that time in New York, took out a full-page ad in one of the New York newspapers calling for these five gentlemen to be executed. He called for the death penalty. Okay? Now, let me post up here. I want to show you a picture of these five men, and you can see what we're talking about here. What he did was he called for the death penalty, and then these men were exonerated. And Donald Trump, to this day, has never apologized to these gentlemen. Okay? Now, even though that they were released, charges were dropped, they were exonerated, they filed a suit against New York City. The city coughed up $41 million to these guys for being falsely accused and falsely imprisoned and serving about almost a decade in prison. Now, Donald Trump is aware and was aware of all of this. As a matter of fact, he's commented on it before. But he goes on this debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, and he reiterates and lies and says falsely that these guys pled guilty, that they were convicted. And that was false. These people never, ever agreed that they were guilty, because the entire time before, during, and after the trial, they've always maintained they were innocent of the crime. Now, once the DNA took place and it was found that the DNA did not belong to any one of these 5 men, but rather it belonged to the gentleman that came along and agreed that he was the one that committed the crime. So Donald Trump knew this. Now, the other thing is, Trump also said that these 5 people not only injured this woman, but he also caused her death. Well, that was another lie because the woman is still alive as we speak. So that was another lie. This was all a made up story that Donald Trump did to present these 5 exonerated men as criminals, thugs, okay, and someone to be afraid of. Now, you know what's interesting about this is that here we are years later, and guess who's been charged and convicted of rape? Yeah, you got it, Donald Trump himself. All right. So these men are now saying that his inflammatory, false, misleading statements have caused them to suffer emotional distress and reputational damage, and they're suing, and they want an unspecified amount of money, but they also want punitive damages for the harm that these caused and done to their reputation. Now, see, and Trump made these statements and comments when, during the debate, Vice President Harris brought up the full-page ad in the New York Times that called for the execution of the Central Park Five when he said the following, like just what she just said, going back many, many years on a lot of people. And here's another thing that he said that was not true. He said that Mayor Bloomberg agreed with him. Well, that's totally false because Mayor Bloomberg was not the mayor at that time. The mayor at that time that the alleged attack took place was Ed Koch. Okay? So all of these things, Trump intentionally spewed this false, misleading, unfactual information to damage the reputation and to paint these gentlemen who were innocent, exonerated. He wanted to paint them as thugs and criminals and rapists, knowing full well that they had been exonerated. All right? Now, the lawsuit points out the statements were false in multiple numbers here. The members of the Central Park Five ever entered guilty pleas. He never entered guilty, and Trump knew that. And he also claimed, like I said, that the Central Park assaults, the victim was killed, and the mayor at the time did not agree with Trump's position in the full-page ad. Now, that was not Mayor Bloomberg. That was Mayor Ed Koch. He was the mayor at that time. Defendant Trump's conduct at the September 10th debate was extremely harmful, intended to cause severe emotional distress to the plaintiffs, the lawsuit alleged. Trump's attorneys have not yet entered an appearance in the courts. But these men, one of them is now a New York City councilman. And he attempted, after that debate, he was in attendance at the debate, but after the debate, he attempted to have a conversation with Donald Trump, in which Trump refused to talk with him. And this is the council member says he repeatedly shouted questions to Trump, saying exonerated 5. And sir, what do you say to a member of the exonerated 5? And Trump reportedly responded and pointed to him, you're I can't be responded, but he said, no, 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 I'm not on your side. The plaintiff was attempting to politely dialogue about the defamatory statements that defendant Trump had made, but defendant Trump refused to engage with him in dialogue. The 5 men's convictions were vacated in 2002, and here we're in 2024. It's 22 years ago. And Trump is still spreading false, misleading lies, damaging these men's reputation. They've been cleared. Another person has admitted and has been convicted of the charge. The courts and a judge has ruled that these 5 men played no part, large or small, in the assault on the young woman. And certainly, they did not cause her death because she's still living today. Now, this is just a part of Trump's playbook. All right? So here's the deal. Here's a guy that is supposed to be tough on crime, big law and order man, okay, who finds himself today, while these men are free and exonerated, he finds himself being charged on 34 felony accounts. He also finds himself charged and tried and convicted on 2 counts of defamation against a woman. It happened just a few years ago. He's tried and convicted. He's been ordered to pay this woman over $200 million for his actions. And yet he's spreading false, misleading, damaging, harmful information about these 5 exonerated Black and brown men. All right? Now, this is, as I said, this is intentional. He certainly knew what he was saying was false. He didn't care. He doesn't care about their reputation. He doesn't care about how much emotional damage he does. He doesn't care about how he characterizes them as thugs and criminals and rapists. He doesn't care. But maybe, just maybe, if these guys are successful, and I have no reason to believe they won't be, that maybe if Donald Trump has to dig deep enough in his pockets, as he had to do for the defamation case of the young lady that he was charged with raping and convicted, by the way, maybe he will start to care. But that's a big maybe, because after all, this is Donald J. Trump, a man who's facing 34 felony convictions, has been accused of fraud, has been accused of hiding classified documents. That has not gone to trial yet, but it soon will. And especially if he loses this election, which he's fighting desperately to win, to keep from having to go to jail or prison. But this shows that this man will go to any lengths to destroy anybody with or without evidence, just on his belief. In his mind, he wanted them to be guilty because they were Black and they were brown. Now, at the same time, he's calling for the death penalty for these guys. Now, as the president, he was releasing criminals that had felonies, that had been convicted of felonies, that had admitted to those felonies, and he was releasing them, giving them pardons, presidential pardons to convicted felons. And yet he's calling for the death penalty for these 5 exonerated Black men and Mexican men, okay? Black and brown men. He has no empathy. He has no regrets. He's not sorry for what he's done. He's not apologized, not one time. And let me tell you, he's not learned a lesson yet. He would do the same thing tomorrow. As a matter of fact, if you remember, it was just a day or two that he referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as a shit mayor. You know, I mean, what kind of guy does this? I mean, is this presidential material? And then just 2 days ago, at a rally in Pennsylvania, the same Pennsylvania where this lawsuit was filed, he spent 12 minutes at a political rally where there are major issues. But what did he talk about? For 12 minutes, he talked about the late great golfer Arnold Palmer's penis size. This is in front of a national television audience, in front of hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people at a political rally. They didn't come to hear that. That's not presidential. That's not going to win you any votes. Why the hell are you fantasizing about this dead man's penis and penis size? Donald Trump, grown men, mature men, professional men, intelligent men don't do that. And especially not a man that wants to be the president of the United States. It doesn't make any sense. So what I want to know is, who in the world would follow and want their children, their young daughters, and their young sons to hear a man who's running for president disgrace himself, show that he has no dignity, no integrity, and his mindset is way off base? Would you want to have to explain to your son or your daughter about the actions of someone who's running for president that is acting like a 4-year-old? And maybe that's an insult to 4-year-olds. I don't know. But certainly these actions are not the actions of someone that deserves to be, as the vice president says, behind the presidential medal in the White House. He doesn't deserve to be anywhere near the White House. So all I can say is, ladies and gentlemen, we are about less than 2 weeks away from Election Day 2024. Vote, 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 and vote according to what you've seen, what you've heard, and how you feel about this unqualified, unfit presidential candidate by the name of Donald J. Trump. Now, let me just tell you, look at how many of his former cabinet members, including his vice president, his former chief of staff, his former state secretary of state, several generals, all have said that Donald J. Trump is unfit to be elected or re-elected to the White House. His mental acuity is diminishing faster and faster each and every day. The proof of that is what he just said in the last 2 rallies that he had. Okay? The one where he talks about Arnold Palmer's penis size for 12 minutes. And then the language that he uses to identify his opponent, who happens to be a black female, is total disrespect, total disregard, totally uncharacteristic for anybody except Donald J. Trump. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have a part to play in this. You must do your civic duty and vote in these last 2 weeks. Early voting has already started in most states. Do your part to see to it that Donald J. Trump never ever sets foot again in the White House. And best wishes to the Central Park Five in their lawsuit. It couldn't happen to a better person than Donald J. Trump. Okay? All right, that's my show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.